Hey, what's up, folks? This is Jesse with Keeping It Real Finance, channel that always has your back and tells it like it is. Well, today's video is a special one. In this video, I had the opportunity and privilege to interview the executive director and co-founder of Polkadex. This is Vivek Prasannan, earlier today. Now, during that interview, we managed to talk about the past, kind of how we came to what we've got today, the present, including the crowd loan, as well as the future for some things that may be around the corner with Polkadex. It was overall an excellent conversation. I gotta admit, the video gets a little laggy in spots, probably because of my internet connection, which hopefully I can fix that in the future. But overall, the content and what Vivek had to share was absolutely awesome, and I'm extremely grateful for him coming on the channel. So with that, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit the like button. If this is your first time to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And if you click the bell, you'll be made aware whenever I post time-sensitive content. And now, let's get it going.
Thank you so much, Jesse. It's a pleasure coming here and talking to you.
Excellent, excellent. So I wanted to kick this interview off by first talking a little bit about the past. From there, we'll kind of move to the present with where we're at with the crowd loan, and then things that are potentially coming in the future. And lastly, I'd like to kind of cap today's conversation with you, sort of selling us on why the community should be excited about Polkadex. And I've got my own reasons, but I kind of want to hear them from you. So that being said, in terms of the past, I think what I really would like to know is, I've seen you talk in other interviews where you've said, you got into Bitcoin roughly around 2015. I'd like to know how the idea kind of came about to start Polkadex with you and the other co-founders, and see how that has evolved. And I'd like to know, in terms of the two products in particular, the order book and Polka IDO, if that was the initial plan or if it's sort of morphed into that, and if you can kind of elaborate.
All right, maybe I can start, probably 7 years ago, like when I first came across Bitcoin. I was, like I mentioned earlier, I was into IT consulting. I'm an engineer myself. So I was into services for a long time, consulting for my clients. And it was in late 2013 that I came across Bitcoin through a common friend of ours, and in fact tried to talk to some of these community members who were part of that ecosystem back then. And then we were all anonymous, as you would be, because that was very early for the ecosystem, and nobody knew exactly where this was heading. But I think what fascinated a lot of people at that time was the way the industry was actually seeing for the first time a way to settle value peer-to-peer, right? It was kind of fascinating even from that at that time. So I happened to do some, as a hobby, I just wanted to learn about mining. So I decided to import a KNC miner from Sweden and tried to put it on one corner of my office to see how this works. But even before that, I tried to acquire a lesser powered, 44 gigahash mining machines to see how the whole thing worked. So right from there, it was the fascination around the whole idea of mining Bitcoin and the gaming involved, and it was not clear to most of the people who were actually getting involved back then. So it took some time for me to really assimilate many of the principles behind the design and how the gaming actually applied in creating a system like this, right? Peer-to-peer, permissionless, open. You never know the other miners. You don't know who all are involved, except you're identified by certain addresses in the internet. So right from the beginning, anybody who started involving in this space is always kept fascinated by the technology itself and how simple it is, right? The genius is that it's very simple, but at the same time, it is something new for someone coming from, even from an IT. I have a background in engineering, but even for me, it was fairly new that, whatever was unfolding was, even though simple, but a little difficult to grasp. Um, but that went on for a while. And when I had to do some, tiny transactions, like when you want to see how the transactions work, you always knew that once Bitcoins are settled, you have no way to recourse. And there's always this counterparty risk that was there even from the beginning. So there used to be escrow mechanisms in place. Um, some people who actually were uh, kind of moderators or admins in the forums, they used to stand as escrow, and they used to grab a 1% commission from these transactions. That is the only way to actually minimize the counterparty risk. Um, so, uh, and on top of that, you had these exchanges mushrooming to take advantage of the trading that happened, because it was easy to trade and exchange these tokens, right? Even back then.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of trading activity amongst the community and the groups, and there were a lot of speculation around it, and it just climbed to, I think it climbed over to 300, and went back down to 100. So it was like very fascinating. It was not like how the Bitcoin is shaped right now. So it's like people were trying to play with it, and that's exactly about the time the um, exchange hack happened in MTGOX. So
Right.
that triggered, that was the biggest hack right back then. That triggered a lot of a lot of people to think what actually happened, right? Because there was a frenzy of speculation, and the coin was driven to around $1,000, I believe, at that time. And then the exchange got hacked, and everybody panicked and sold. And definitely, I was also trying to figure out how this. I was also hobby trying to, as a side hobby, trying to trade and see how this worked and everything. So I knew that like the counterparty risk was always there in exchanging this token, especially with the exchanges. And so hence there happened to be many threats around it, um, many very driven and passionate and excellent minds actually discussing on how to eliminate this by utilizing blockchain as a store of value, because everyone knew that, okay, blockchain as a store of value is already accepted, because of this peer-to-peer consensus mechanism. It can store value. Now how do we eliminate counterparty risk? By bringing together this the idea that we could actually peg different assets against each other, and then have another blockchain take care of this counterparty risk, whereby you can actually exchange these uh, you know primary blockchain tokens with the other one as a collateral. So many proposals were actually being discussed. It's back in 2014 it started, I believe, soon after the hack happened in MTGOX. So it's not something new, right? Decentralized exchanges have been tried over for the last many years. So it was natural progression. There was many that came through. BitShares, one of them. Ether Delta came in after that, and we also got to see the inherent difficulties with the blockchain scaling. CryptoKitties came in and completely jammed the whole Ethereum ecosystem back then. So everybody knew that the even though the a decentralized exchange mechanism was actually possible to be programmed, but it was never able to bring the kind of liquidity or experience that users need back then when they interacted with an exchange.
Right.
Um, so so that that's how the whole thing evolved into uh, automated market making, right? Because there were some very good exchanges back then which gained traction, but after they would cross probably a few $1 million worth of daily trading volume, they would be pinned down by regulators, or they were forced to shut it down. And as soon as there is a um, friction involved in the transactions, users just stop coming there, because there was no real incentive to park any liquidity. And so the exchanges just thinned out and eventually died, I would say. So some of them which remained um, could just did not get the traction. So that's when the AMM pools emerged, and it was found as a concept, because everybody knew that there has to be some gaming around these activities. Because looking at the model of Bitcoin, right, everything is about the identification and gaming around the whole system. right? So unless there is an automated gaming mechanism, even in any decentralized system, if there is no automated gaming or some sort of incentivization for people to participate, where independent participants come to take a profit, it simply doesn't sustain, you know. So
Right.
that's the exact idea put behind the AMM pools, right? So exactly like the miners have an incentive to participate in verifying the blocks. Here you see that the participants have an incentive to park liquidity in Uniswap because you can actually take advantage of the arbitrage and make a profit. And so that was the solution to the problem of thinning away of liquidity from order book dexes back then. And once Uniswap came in, it basically gave a tremendous opportunity for arbitraging and making a profit, which basically helped a lot of this even institutional players to come and park liquidity there and try to take advantage of the arbitrage available in Uniswap. So given that scenario, right? So we knew that it wasn't really straightforward to scale a order book dex because um, just like in Uniswap, placing orders and canceling them on a regular basis was not going to be effective for um, automated trading in dexes because it's going to be expensive. So um, I used to work around the principle with another chain where you could have this you know limited control given to a centralized operator who could actually do these transactions with some sort of contract to bind him so that he cannot run away with the funds. Um, I had that in my mind, but it never took off. Honestly, the whole idea did not took off until I met Dipanshu Gautam, because we started interacting together, working on a different project because they were working on something very interesting for solving the scalability on consensus algorithm, because we knew that one of the things that limited the blockchains is the block time, right? You have a block time apart from the network itself. You have a block time which needs to consume the transactions, and you have limited space there. You have limited real estate where you can
Right.
actually include those transactions, which is limiting the scalability and everything. So throughput was something everybody was working on back then, which also fascinated me. And the idea they had was to eliminate the block time concept and bring in something similar to what Solana is doing right now, but more of a different approach in terms of broadcasting and how the transactions are confirmed. So we were constantly discussing and mentoring. Like they were also looking for somebody to keep uh, getting on the guidance from, and we were together for like quite a few months actually working on the same thing. And it was in 2020 that early 2020 that um, finally we came together on applying these algorithms on something useful, a product that can be utilized by the industry. And then that's when we agreed, okay, let's try and solve this problem. This problem has been lying there for a long time and nobody has really taken it up because it's kind of a difficult problem to solve. And there's no real incentive for people to go and solve it because AMMs were doing really well back. Uniswap was really um, taking up all the volume and everybody was happy. And that's when we decided, okay, let's try and see where the problem areas are and how to fix it and how to eliminate some of the trigger points and see which are the areas that we can compromise on, which are the areas that we can actually make it. And the idea is to create a 100% non-custodial peer-to-peer exchange, and which completely secures or completely takes away the liability of that text distributed among the participants, so that it becomes secured by the blockchain, and gives the same kind of trading experience as you would do in a centralized exchange. Because personally, for me, I always do not entertain. I mean, most people do not entertain the fact that maybe now they're getting more comfortable till the next hack. Even in December, a large exchange got hacked. I don't know. People now don't care about these hacks anymore, but still, it just keeps happening. It pops up every now and then, and people just
Yeah.
don't. Back then, even a 10 million hack is like a big news. But these days, like if 70 million got hacked, people don't Okay, it's happens in crypto.
Yeah, yeah, it's
And
all relative.
yeah, and if you look at the total cost and the um, how expensive it is to recover from a hack like that, and how much of time you lose as a even if you look at from a business terms, right? And sort of the security and the insurance you need to have to operate exchanges like this, and even for every single hack, that much more harder for the regulators to come in and look at what you're doing, how you're protecting your assets. So it becomes more difficult to actually make these things mainstream because regular retail users who come up with $100 worth of your asset, it is scary for them to just lose it. Like it's not
Yeah.
easy to sustain this. That's why it's very important that we need to try and push this technology to the point at least you secure the assets in a very easy to trade environment, make it completely non-custodial, where the risk is completely offloaded to the users, so that there is no honeypot for a hacker to come and exploit that. You know,
Yeah.
so that's the first thing that you can attempt. So that is what we wanted to try and do it, and that's how we, ended up creating what we have right now. So the first idea was to use, identify something that will help us to do it. That's why we came across Substrate and many things that we wanted to um, create for this experience to happen. Substrate as a Rust framework gave the finer controls to do it. That is essentially the reason why we went to Polkadot and the whole ecosystem, how we got drawn into that. And yeah, initially, if you ask me, like we didn't want to create the kind of complexity that we wanted. So the first idea was to try and use it, and let's create a prototype of an on-chain exchange. I mean, the same thing as either Delta, right? Straightforward. You have the wallets, you have the on-chain settlements, and create an order book. And it was actually kind of easy to do, And
Okay.
we gave the prototype. We gave the prototype to Web3, and we applied for a grant. And that's how we qualified for the Web3 grant, because nobody else was trying an order book back then. But after creating that, that's when our what do you say um, ambitions grew, because you knew that you're now seeing something really composable. Like for Rust is a very composable, and the framework itself, Substrate, is more composable. And you started looking at it from you know a product perspective. Like, now why don't we improve the capability so that you can actually use it as something which is which can be given out to regular traders, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
why we worked on we then thought about, okay, how to make it like a proper exchange. You need liquidity, and you need high frequency trading bots to interact with it. And obviously then came the problem with the gas fees, the high gas fees that is on Ethereum. And
Right.
so then the good thing about Substrate is, back then most of these dexes were attempted on layer one blockchains, right? The basic layer one structure that is given to you, and you just build your contracts around it, and you have an application. That's how the dexes were designed so far. So now we were looking at this thing. Okay, you can basically re-architecture the whole thing and create it the way you want it. The blockchain can be it can be changed, the consensus can be changed. And even before I mentioned about the block time, the bottleneck of completing all these transactions within that block so that you can include it, the limited real estate. So all of that, we look, there's so many ways you can actually take it out of the concept of runtime, which is actually great. And you can execute it outside the runtime, then bring it back after a later period. So all of these gave us the opportunity to be more ambitious, I would say, to see whether we can get all these experiences, right? We just noted down what are those experiences that are lacking in Dex. One is high frequency trading. You should be able to trade with trading bots. You should be able to place 1,000 transactions and cancel it without a fees, right?
Right.
Still,
Right.
the fund has to be secure, right? The fund has to be secure. You need to place 1,000 transactions, cancel it, place it again, so that you can actually, get that profit. So we looked at that, and then you obviously the gas fees, and so minor things, and some of the insurances that need to be taken care of in case there is a compromise, how to roll back the blockchain. So all of this, when we looked at it, this provided the opportunity to create an architecture. Even though it's kind of complex, it solves every one of those problems, right? Except for the fact that, like if you, it's even possible to create an anonymous exchange. I'm not kidding. But thing is, right now, when you look at a go-to-market strategy, then you definitely need to have this, like a interface with the institutional market making and all of those things. Then that's the reason why it is even limited to even a small extent, right? The order book is more of a regulated exchange, but the pool itself and the blockchain itself and the protocol itself is completely decentralized. So it's still possible, to work around some of the adjustments we have made to actually make it as a you know uh, go-to place to actually trade your tokens without giving away custody of your funds. Um, so that's how we try to change the whole architecture. We introduced the TEE layer. We introduced the IPFS for rollbacks, and so all of those things were introduced later after our Web3 grant, and we moved away a little bit in terms of the vision and the kind of product that we wanted. So it just um, comes down to attracting more users and giving them the experience of a non-custodial peer-to-peer exchange where you don't have to worry about your fund. You finish your trading, leave it there. You don't worry about whether how many bitcoins you store on your centralized exchange. Sometimes it's scary for some people leaving, because even personally, I don't leave more than what you can trade in an exchange, right? And
Right.
that's the kind of habit that most of these uh, new new people who get introduced to crypto, they complete the trade, they leave the funds on the exchange. They don't even know that that fund doesn't belong to them, as long as they have it in their wallets, and they don't even know how regulated these exchanges are. But if you have a system where you can trade and forget about storing it, it's already on your in your cold wallet. It just makes it easier for you to interact. And once we have a system like that, it's that much more scalable. And I think regulators also would try to create a different regulatory mechanism for such exchanges where the liability does not belong to the exchange. Liability belongs to the users. So they themselves can take care of their custody by utilizing custody services and things like that.
Yeah, I think you touched on quite a lot there in terms of I like where the team is at. So I like the security, I like the scalability, and I heard you say recently in one of the AMAs, you said you wanted the UX, the user experience, so easy that your dad could do it. And then that kind of
Yeah, yeah,
resonated with me because my dad's in crypto too, and I think, boy, if my dad could use Polkadex, that'd be totally awesome, right? um, it,
absolutely. Yep.
I want to pivot a little bit to the crowd loan. Could you kind of give everybody an update on where we're at with the crowd loan, where everything stands right now?
Yeah, I think it's going pretty well. If you look at the total tokens that we have locked up, given the fact that we actually came in really late to the party for the batch two, uh, we actually have a good position in the list for us to actually get a slot at some point sooner than later. So I think we have more than $2 million worth of dots locked as of now.
Right.
So we'll keep going at it and until we get that slot, because it's very important that a decentralized exchange like this, especially with the pools that we are going to open up for the people to exchange the substrate-based tokens, and the kind of value that it adds to the ecosystem, it truly deserves a connection to the relay chain, so that it can easily bring other substrate-based tokens to the system without much friction. You know,
Yeah.
and combined with the fact that we are bridging our own interoperability layer with other layer one blockchains, that gives more unlocking of value for the substrate tokens, right? So suppose somebody in the substrate ecosystem wants to raise funds in Ethereum, or wants to raise funds in Bitcoin, and you want those fundraisers to be truly decentralized, right? without having to compromise their security. Polkadex can actually make that happen because Polkadex chain is having native interoperability will have with Ethereum and Bitcoin in the future. And think about it, like having a Ripple pair on a DEX. Think about it, right?
Yeah.
So those are things that those are the kind of value that we can actually bring into the ecosystem. Like the truly unknown pairs to be paired with natively on a DEX, which will allow the substrate ecosystem to flourish alongside Ethereum ecosystem with a lot of interoperability which is without a lot of cost. That's the key point here.
Yeah, something else that I noticed the other day, and I actually posted about it on Twitter, was that I was looking at Polkadex, the contract on Etherscan, and I mentioned that I think there was only something like a little over 4,000 holders so far on Etherscan, and then the Polkadex account responded and said, "Well, we've actually got the subscan numbers too." And with those, it was a little over 2,000. And altogether, it's somewhere a little over 6,000 people hold Polkadex right now. And I kind of wanted to mention that to say that I'm not sure if the crypto community realizes how early we are with Polkadex and how much potential there is here. Because in comparison, like I was looking at another project just yesterday that has over 40,000 holders and it pays no rewards whatsoever. and I've been mentioning those PDEX rewards that you can get when you're staking on mainnet are very significant right now. Obviously going down over time, but they are substantial. And it's a little bit baffling to me why there aren't more people into Polkadex staking that Polkadex when it is such a solid project and there's so many things going for it. And I've done probably roughly, let's say 4 or 5 handful of videos on Polkadex for my channel. And with each of them, I think I'm just sold even more, with everything that I find out about Polkadex, you guys and the team, everything that you've put together, the progress that you've made. You've mentioned failures along the way, and you just kind of keep on, trudging along. You move past them, you learn from them, you adapt. And I think there's so many positives here. I love the fact that you built this on Polkadot. Polkadot is one of my top chains. The more I learned about it, the more I was like, wow, Polkadot, I think should be probably the number one out there. And I feel like Polkadex has so much potential right now. And I guess that's what I'm trying to communicate is that there's so much potential and so much opportunity here with it that I'm not sure if everybody fully gets that yet.
I think we know exactly why there are not lot many holders, and how we have, because it goes back to the way that we started off working on this project. So we raised close to 3.5 million, right? Everybody knows that. And within a short span of time, you should look at hardly 6 months, actually, probably, 8 months, I would say. We built our own blockchain with the kind of changes that are required, custom built blockchain for this application. We basically built out the interoperability module that is required for this application for connecting to other blockchains. We even had to create some of the trading engine and optimize it ourselves instead of reusing some of the things out there to make it open source and make it more available. There's so many closed source systems out there, but we built out the whole thing ourselves. And the amount of things that were actually made from scratch, even when the interoperability that is going to be released, you can see that. I'm really proud of what we achieved. In the last 6 months, we built out the entire prototype where many projects do not have to do all this, right? So with $3 million, $3.5 million that we raised, we completely built from scratch many of the core technologies that are required for creating an application like this. But most projects, even with several times the races that we do, they can afford to, put that aside for marketing and other purposes, which is natural for, those kind of projects to get more exposure, and more, backing, because the more, because it's still a very speculative space, right?
Yeah.
You basically buy something because your friend says to buy it, or somebody says, okay, this is very good, you should buy it, they're giving you so much reward. It's all about profit making mentality, right? In generally, that's how the crypto operates. So it's very natural that we had a limited capital, and we had to utilize it for building what we wanted to build, than spending a lot on, you know a majority of that for marketing. But with the limited resources, the kind of talent that we could actually attract for this project, that is the reason why we were able to even do at least this, because we have spent very little for marketing so far, if you imagine. But still, with that limited resources, we could attract the best talent, and we were able to build out a community of around 100,000 people. It's actually not a small feat. So imagine with the next level what we are capable of, right? Once, now that we have the structure in place, the infrastructure in place to make these applications live, in every single step, the fundraisers that we do the next round, that will give us the firepower to actually go and evangelize what we do, and let people use it and know for themselves what we have actually built, instead of keeping on saying the same thing. Okay, this is great, because right from the beginning everybody agreed that, oh, if we are able to deliver what we are promising, it's going to be a great product, right?
Right.
That's the confidence that we had. So there was no question going back and looking at whether we are going the right direction. So honestly, we're not really worried about the number of valid users or anything like that, because we know clearly that it is simply because of the lack of the awareness, or the lack of the more capital needs to be kept aside for growing the community. We understand that, but it is also more important that we have these products ready in time, so that once these users come in, they're able to use it and say for finally that, okay, here we have something to actually make use of, right? It takes time to build products. It's not easy to bring some white paper into an actual usable product. Many of the projects that we see are um, probably a manifestation of the white papers, or the things that an engineer dreamt of, or a research scientist dreamt of, could be possibly utilized for solving a specific set of problems. But it takes a lot of effort to actually bring that into an actual product. So that is why we are really proud of what we've achieved with the limited resources that we had, and the team that we had. And that's why it gives us more confidence that going to the next level, we should be able to manage that properly. With a little bit of focused effort, I think it is possible to grow this community, and make people understand. I think this should happen organically. The moment the people start using it, it just spreads out. That's how we went to look at Uniswap as a protocol, right? It was sleeping for almost a year, actually. It just slowly, people say, okay, then people started understanding the value of it, and the more liquidity comes in, the formula works better with the Uniswap AMM pool, right?
Right. Right.
That's how it just became better and better and better with more liquidity coming in. So yeah, we have to be able to be patient here, but I think we are in the right direction, and we have the right set of engineers and people around to make this happen.
I would agree with you on that. And in terms of the future, why don't we talk about that real quick? Because I know we're running a little short on time. In terms of the future, can you touch on things like partnerships, central exchange listings, what's coming around the corner? Also, native PDEX being listed on exchanges, when that might occur. Can you touch on some of those things that are kind of planned for 2022?
Yeah, I think native PDEX listing is kind of uh, already it's basically agreed upon with some of the exchanges, right? It is simply that the pipeline is too much for them to handle everything, and Substrate being a newer newer code to actually implement their security protocols or whatever they have in house. That is the only reason I feel that they're taking time to listed. Otherwise, from our side, the engagements are already on, and it's something that we built out in the last many months. I believe the already existing exchanges would be listing, native PDEX in this same quarter itself. That is going to happen. And as far as
Okay.
partnerships are concerned, it's happening very regularly. We want to keep just recently the fiat on ramp just happened, right? You can now buy, PDEX with your credit card. So Simplex is our partner. So we are going to extend that capacity to our exchange, where our exchange will work with Simplex, and utilizing Polkadex's liquidity, it can allow people to purchase other tokens with the fiat, with the credit card or whatever it is. So all of these are going to actually bridge a lot of liquidity to the exchange. So yeah, partnerships are something that we are working on a regular basis. We always have that in mind. If you look at the last 1 month, we've announced close to 10 or so partnerships already. And we also have plans to partner with projects in the same ecosystem. For example, we're working to have NFTs to be minted in Polkadex by working with other ecosystem partners. So that makes it easier for users of Polkadex to have access to some of these NFT marketplace, which is really gaining traction.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And do you have any other centralized exchange listings on the horizon?
Yes, we do have other centralized exchange listing on the horizon. It's also already discussed and agreed. It's simply a matter of the partnership to get. They just have to they take their own time to list it. They put you on the pipeline.
Right. Understood. Okay.
Yeah, this year you can expect many of them to be open. Yeah.
Okay. So lastly, to kind of wrap everything up here, I want to hear your greatest sales pitch on why Polkadex is, if not the best DEX out there.
Right. I think the biggest sales pitches here is that Polkadex is going to open up a new marketplace for people who actually care about their funds when they trade, and also people who care about getting access to the rare tokens that they don't really get to trade in other centralized exchanges. So we will be unlocking a lot of value for those users. So that is the biggest sales pitch that we have. We for the first time we have a DEX with native interoperability with other layer 1 blockchains. So that itself is a huge value proposition, which we believe that this should be the trend moving forward. That will open up the marketplace a little bit more and attract more regular users, like we mentioned again, people like my dad or someone who is coming new to the ecosystem should consider DEXs are the de facto way to trade.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think I heard you mention the other day, and I kind of agree with this point also, that I think the longer that you're in the crypto space in general, you sort of gravitate to DEXs naturally, and I think a lot of it comes to
Yeah.
that. It's that core principle of decentralization, right? That when you stay on these centralized exchanges, you don't get that, and there's some limitations that come along with it. And so, the longer you're in the space, you gravitate towards the DEX. And I got to admit that I think that Polkadex is the number one DEX that I have been looking forward to, and I love watching all the progress you guys are making. I see all the partnerships that you're tweeting about regularly. And I like that you just kind of keep knocking down one task after another, keep moving forward. Because, like you said, I mean, that's the way you do it, right? You just kind of keep on moving forward. We got a problem, we'll figure it out. We'll move past it. And then I think you're doing all of the right things. And it's interesting how you mentioned, about the marketing side of it, that you really haven't even, scratched the surface of a full-fledged marketing campaign. And
Yep.
and that's something that's really important to note for anybody who's looking into Polkadex. That again, it's like this is just the beginning. These things take time. It doesn't happen overnight. But now is such an opportunity with this project in particular, and I'm really grateful to have found it. I got to be honest. Polkadex in particular, nobody. Sometimes people recommend me to, review a project and put it on the channel or whatever. And Polkadex is one of the ones that I found totally on my own. I never had seen any of your information before. I was just kind of digging around and I found it and I said, "Hey, what's this?" And the more I started digging into it, I was like, "Wow, I really like this one." And then, with each video I've done, I'm kind of like more and more bullish on Polkadex in general. And then, when I started staking on mainnet, I was like, "This is awesome." I'm really looking forward to the mobile app in particular. And so, I really hope you guys obviously secure that crowd loan. I think that'd be a really big deal, as you mentioned, for the interoperability and, the different doors that
Yeah.
opens as well. So,
Thank you. Thank you
yeah.
so much, Jesse, for the kind words. Yeah. I think for us, it's very simple. Like, stay humble and keep pushing it. You will get there. There's no question about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your head's in the right place for this one, and so that's pretty much it for all I had for today. Love to have you back on in the future. Obviously we'll fine tune things a little bit from there, but greatly appreciate your time. Honored to have you, and just thanks for doing this for me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Very nice talking to you. I'll come back again.
All right, so if you're still with me, hopefully that interview showed you exactly why I'm so bullish on Polkadex. Obviously, they've got an excellent team behind the project. That's the most important thing, first and foremost. Then you look at how they're focused on the security of it, the scalability of it, just the peer-to-peer transactions. I really like all of that. There's so many factors in Polkadex that I really like, and with each video that I've done, just like I mentioned in the interview, there's a little bit more, right? And so now that I finally had the chance to chat with Vivek about everything, I am more bullish than ever on this one. Super excited for what the future holds. Now, that being said, if you want to help Polkadex, all you got to do is contribute, right? And the easiest way to do that is to either pick up Polkadex, pick up DOT, help with the crowd loan. If you want to do that, I do have referral links in the video description for various platforms that have, sign-up bonuses or reduced trading fees, etc. KuCoin is in there. You can pick up PDEX and DOT on KuCoin. You can also pick up DOT on Coinbase. You can do these on Binance as well. Numerous platforms for DOT, but Polkadex is a little more limited when you're picking up the PDEX, all right? So that being said, if you want to contribute, it would greatly help them getting that parachain. What the parachain gives them is full interoperability with the whole Polkadot ecosystem. This is a really big deal because this kind of moves the technology and the software to where it's intended to go. So they really need you to help out with that. And when you do, the rewards along the way are significant. As I mentioned in the video, the current rewards rate for staking PDEX on mainnet is roughly 47%. There are significant rewards that come along with the crowd loan as well. So by all means, do not sleep on this one, okay? So overall, I just wanted to once again throw out a huge thank you to Vivek Prasannan for coming on the channel. Greatly appreciate it. Hopefully in the future, I'll get my video a little smoother, right? And, we can get a little better quality on that. But that being said, I think the quality of the discussion today was 100%. It was fantastic, and I'm extremely grateful for him coming on the channel. All right? So that being said, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit the like button. Don't forget that I'm also on Twitter at KIR Finance, where you can find me tweeting and retweeting on a regular basis, so check me out there. As I mentioned in my last video, I've also got some new shirts that are in the merch shop, so check those out. And lastly, for a friendly reminder, this is Jesse with Keeping It Real Finance, channel that always has your back, tells it like it is, and I will see you on the next one. Later.